I guess I'd have to start with the fact that I was born on a farm. My father was a medical doctor and he delivered all of us. So the biggest problem, I think, was there was a lot of work to be done, but also there was a problem with schooling. And in order to further our education, we had to obtain and rent a house in Memphis, Tennessee in order to go to school. It was kind of sad because my father was on the farm by himself, and my mother would go home on the weekends to prepare his meals and also bring food back for us. I think he felt that without an education, we really could not progress, and we would not be able to sustain ourselves. And the one thing that he emphasized more was the girls as well as the boys to be educated, and that was, I mean, we were glad about that, but I remember asking him why did he think we needed to go to college, and he said, well, you never know when you might be able, when you will have to take care of yourself. It was unusual, I think, because women did not go on to higher education then. Started at Lemoyne College in Memphis, and it was during the war. The Second World War started that year, 1941. And it was a liberal arts college the teachers came from the North, from the American Missionary Association, but they didn't have what I was interested in, and I wanted to be a dietitian, and they did not have the home economics courses. And I wanted to join the WACS. If you joined the WACS, they would send you to dietetics school afterwards for free.
So that was the loophole to get
yeah.
it.
But my father, he did not agree. I didn't go, no. Surprisingly, my sister said that she had applied to be waif, I think it is, I can't remember quite what the Navy expression was for women. And she was told that they didn't take colors, so come back. I had always gone to school in a segregated school. So those of us who were fortunate enough to go on to college, it was well, I guess it's like you're in college now. You know, it was an experience, and we were happy to be there. But we also felt very fortunate, too. And our enrollment was not like it is in the colleges now. I think maybe we might have had maybe 400 for the whole college or something like that. And our teachers came from the North. So we had several white teachers as well as the black teachers. He was a northern young man, and I'm used to the really southern young men who were very, very protective of the young ladies and whatnot. And I don't know, we sort of hit it off because it's kind of new. He was from Montclair, New Jersey. And his parents were immigrants too from Jamaica. And through my ignorance, I'd never heard of Jamaica because of the West Indies, and it was a whole new experience for me learning about them and what had happened to the slaves in the Caribbean. Yeah, and I often wondered why those from the Caribbean were able to go to school, where we were in the South were denied going to school. I talked to my son-in-law about it, and we came to the conclusion that the British, the Portuguese, and the Dutch did not plan to stay in the islands. They would go there, establish their plantations, but they also needed to train the people in order to take care of the equipment and to carry on for them. Where in America, the white man was staying. So he had to find a way in which to separate our people from his people and justify it. And so
They didn't have that Jamaica.
So by keeping us and depriving us of certain opportunities, it made us feel that we were less than capable. Well, when he came back, he had not gone to college, and so he applied to Oberlin, and we went to Oberlin for him to get his degree. And I was surprised, being an underground entry into the North for slaves, that we were denied housing because we were black there at the College of Oberlin. But he petitioned the dean to send a survey around to all the residents of the married couples and to see if they would be okay with if we moved in there. And so they were. They said they had no problem with it. But it also caused me to have to interact and sit down with a white person on a one-to-one basis, and that was a new experience for me. And I was petrified because of it. I'd only been in stores or banks, but never actually sitting down with someone who may have had different ideas than I have. And I got used to it because the people were very nice, but it was a new experience for me. Well, it was against the law to sit next to a white person on the bus. So we were always had to go in the back of the bus. And you kind of grow up with it, knowing the rules and knowing what you can do and cannot do. And you didn't dare sit up front because you were always told to go to the back. And I had a really good experience with the minister who was the chaplain at the college, the Hans from Indiana. And she and I became really good friends. She was just pushing to know about the South. And so when we would go downtown to Macy's or one of the shopping, we would sit on the bus. So as long as we weren't sitting side by side, we could get away with it. And that's what we would do. So, because we didn't want to get arrested.
You never questioned that?
Question that?
Yes.
No, you didn't dare. In other words, my mother always cautioned us when we were leaving the house how we should act and how we should conduct ourselves. In other words, don't raise any red flags, because it would cause a lot of problems. Even my father really, in spite of his education and his knowledge and stuff, had to play a certain role because he was never called Mr. He was always called Doc. He didn't know what we were race-wise. And he told her we were West Indians, and she just accepted that. We weren't, as long as we weren't, to her, as long as we weren't black, then that was fine. And we only stayed there. We finished in a year. And we lived 100 miles outside of Monrovia, so we really were in the interior, which I really, really liked. The people were wonderful. And it gave me a sense of, hey, we're not so bad after all. I mean, these people they are capable, because in the South you almost feel like you're not all there. So, but anyway, we stayed there 4 years, and it was really one of the best experiences because it gave me a different take on being African American. And I felt so much better about myself when I came back. He was going back to school to get his doctorate in African Studies, which now African Studies is quite a popular course, but at that time there were only 2 universities that offered it. I think Boston and I think it was Indiana was the other one. But when we were in Florida, that was sort of the beginning of the civil rights movement. And because he could speak Italian very well, he would go down to the State House to find out what the opinions were that were being passed around about the unrest that was happening after the war.
Is that something that you wanted to continue for him, or it just was not something?
No, I was not. He was very political, and he was very one who really wanted to see change. Because he told me that when he went to Montclair High School and how he and his brothers fought for certain rights for the black students there. So coming from the South and always being taught to mind your place or remember who you are, and he from the North having a lot more freedom, it was just sort of inbred in him that he was going to change the world and make it a better place. And I mean, I was with that too, but not quite in the same way. He died before. I met someone there and got remarried. It was interesting because I was brought up were like that. I had no idea that there were children who parents were not responsible for them. So it's like a job. You get up and you go to work, and you have organization, and you have to be organized. And because then we moved back from California we were in California during the Watts riots. I don't know if you remember it. Did you know anything about those? The Watts riots.
Oh yeah, we heard about it.
And it was, my oldest son was going off to Yale, and we had to have a police escort to get him down to the bus station for him to get going. But anyway, we moved to Minnesota after we were in California for about 6 years. And we bought some land outside of St. Paul. And we ran right back smack dab into prejudice again, because they had never had a black family out there. And it was about 10 miles out of St. Paul. And so it was a hard time getting the kids in school, because they did not really want these black children in the school. But they really didn't have a choice. I got into the group home program out there. Even going to school in the North, I was never planning to stay in the North. I was going back to work in the rural South. That was but I never got back south. And it was through my daughter Mila that I got involved with the foster program. She brought a little girl from New York when she was attending Barnet to spend Christmas. And the mother wrote and asked me if I would keep her. And I didn't, I didn't know what to say, but I never thought about keeping somebody else's child. But I said I'd give it a try. And she stayed with us about 2 years, going to school. But then I said, well, I can take care of other people's children. So I called down to the social services, child, and asked if I could be a foster parent. And so she asked me how many children did I have, and I told her. So she said, well, call me back when you're down to 3. And I said, I'll be out of business when I get down to 3. The nice thing is that bringing them in the home, they had to be part of the family. It couldn't be them and the others. And so it worked out very well. I would only take them if they could spend a school year. And they were usually junior high boys. It is. But it's also a time when you might be able to inspire something in them. I did that for 15 years out there. And I had 8 boys, so 8 more wouldn't, you know. So then having the Down son was also another phase that, when looking back on it, I'm glad I've had the opportunity to learn so much more than what I had assumed life was all about. I had a choice to put him in an institution or to keep him. And I couldn't believe I had lived as long as I had, and I was not aware of that side and that people had children like that. So I felt that with love and care that I could make him all better. But I soon learned that that was impossible. But it was a responsibility that I'm glad I did, because I learned something. And he brought a lot of joy to the family because he was very lovable. But he was not a high-functioning Down. And I think my children learned something from that, not to take everything for granted. It was something that if my father could do the things that he did in order for us to have an education, I could do less than help mine and inspire them the importance of it. And I always told them that, as a matter of fact, my little granddaughter was talking about her test scores and how proud she was of them. And I said, yes, that's yours. Nobody can ever take that away from you. But they can take your car, they can take your house, but that is yours. And that's something that I think everyone, if possible, could pursue, because it's the knowledge that you learn, all the things you learn. Nobody can ever take that from you. Well, my children were all able to go to non-segregated schools. So I guess the hardest thing was feeling comfortable with them in that situation, because I had not experienced it. But, times are changing. Nothing stays the same. And hopefully they will carry on what my father always is, that education is the best thing that one can instill in their children. Well, my daughter if I had my druthers, as they say, I would stay in Minnesota because of the pace is slower, and coming out east and having the Down child at the time, I wasn't sure how the adjustment would be. And I did not want him to affect her children because we lived next door. But it also, I'm glad I came now. It's given me an opportunity to spend time with her, with Mila, Terry, and Earl, who spent a lot of time helping me take care of the kids when they should have been out doing other things. And I've been thankful for having that opportunity, to be near them and to spend time that I always felt that I had cheated them when I was raising the other family. 2 are in Georgia, 1 in Minnesota, 2 are in California, and 1 in Pennsylvania, and 2 here in Jersey. When the new one arrives, it'll be 24, I think, 24 grand.